Your next paycheck is probably already spent. Not physically, not officially, but mentally. And that's exactly what happened to Steve. Before his paycheck even arrived, he already knew where most of it would go: rent, bills, subscriptions, food, random purchases he hadn't even made yet. And somehow, every month felt the same. The money came in, the money went out, and Steve was left wondering where it all went. This is Steve. Steve likes feeling productive. He likes watching videos about money. He likes imagining his future self, the version of him that finally has savings, investments, options, freedom. The problem? Future Steve was doing great. Present Steve kept spending his paycheck. Maybe you know the feeling. You get paid. For a few hours, maybe a few days, life feels good. Your account balance looks healthy. You feel ahead. Then, little by little, the number starts shrinking. A coffee here, a meal there, a subscription renewal, something on sale, a small reward because you've worked hard. Nothing seems dangerous until suddenly you're waiting for the next paycheck again. That's where Steve found himself, month after month. And for a long time, he thought the solution was simple: earn more money. That's what everyone says, right? Get a raise, find a side hustle, make more, problem solved. But then something strange happened. Steve actually got a raise, nothing huge, but enough to notice, enough to make a difference. At least that's what he expected. 3 months later, he had almost nothing to show for it. The extra money had vanished. Not because of an emergency, not because of bad luck, because his spending quietly grew to match his income. Without realizing it, Steve had upgraded his lifestyle. And that's when he learned why one of the most important money lessons of his life. Most people don't have an income problem, they have a paycheck problem. Specifically, what happens right after payday? Because the first few days after getting paid often determine everything that follows. Think about it. Most financial decisions don't happen at the end of the month. They happen at the beginning, when emotions are high, when the account balance looks healthy, when spending feels harmless. Steve decided to test something. Before touching a single dollar from his next paycheck, he made a plan. Not a complicated budget, not a giant spreadsheet, just a simple question. What does future Steve need? Not present Steve. Future Steve. The version of him 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 5 years from now. And that question completely changed how he viewed money. Because present Steve wanted convenience. Future Steve wanted freedom. Present Steve wanted dopamine. Future Steve wanted options. Present Steve wanted delivery food. Future Steve wanted savings. Suddenly, every dollar had competition. Every purchase had a hidden alternative. Not because Steve stopped enjoying life, but because he started seeing trade-offs. And trade-offs are everywhere. One night, Steve was about to order food. Again, nothing unusual. But before he clicked the button, he paused. The meal wasn't just costing $20. It was costing $20 plus delivery fees, plus taxes, plus tips. Nearly $30 for one meal. That small realization changed his behavior. Not because he never ordered food again, but because he became intentional. And intentional spending feels very different from automatic spending. Then Steve discovered something even more powerful. Most people think money decisions happen in the moment. They don't. The best money decisions happen before temptation appears. Wealthy habits are often pre-decisions. Automatic transfers, automatic investing, automatic savings, systems, not willpower. Steve used to rely on motivation. Motivation worked for about 3 days, then life happened, stress happened, temptation happened, exhaustion happened. and motivation disappeared. Systems stayed. So before his next paycheck arrived, Steve set up a simple automatic transfer. Nothing dramatic, just a percentage of his income, gone before he could spend it. At first it felt small, almost pointless. But something unexpected happened. He adapted. Humans are surprisingly good at adapting. Soon he stopped missing the money entirely, and his savings quietly started growing. That's when Steve realized another truth. People often focus on making big financial moves, but financial success is usually built through small automatic actions repeated for years. The amount matters less than the habit. The habit is what changes your identity. Every month, Steve saved a little more. Every month, he became the type of person who saves. Every month, he became the type of person who plans ahead. And identity is powerful, because once you see yourself differently, your behavior starts changing naturally. Then Steve noticed something else. The people around him often talked about money differently. Some people constantly talked about what they couldn't afford. Others talked about how they could create more value. One group focused on limitations, the other focused on opportunities. And over time, those conversations created completely different futures. Steve started paying attention to opportunities. Could he learn a skill? Help someone solve a problem? Improve something at work? Build something useful? Because every additional skill increased his earning potential. And unlike gadgets, skills rarely lose value. The more useful Steve became, the more opportunities seemed to appear. Not because the world changed, because he changed. That's when everything started making sense. Wealth isn't usually created by one giant decision. It's created by hundreds of small decisions made before the next paycheck arrives. How you think about money, how you plan for money, how you spend money, how you save money, how you invest in yourself. The paycheck isn't the deciding factor. What you do with it is. And that's why this video matters. Because your next paycheck is coming, maybe in a few days, maybe next week. And most people will repeat the same cycle they've repeated for years without realizing it. Steve almost did. But one small shift changed everything. He stopped asking, "How much money am I getting?" and started asking, "What job does every dollar need to do?" That question made him more aware, more intentional, more prepared, and eventually more financially secure. Not overnight, not in a month, but steadily. The kind of progress that actually lasts. So before your next paycheck arrives, take 10 minutes, not an hour, not an entire weekend, just 10 minutes. Think about future you. Decide where the money goes before it gets there. Build one simple system. Make one better decision. Because financial freedom rarely comes from one giant breakthrough. It usually comes from small choices made consistently. Remember Steve? The guy who thought his next paycheck would solve everything. The guy who kept waiting for more money. The guy who eventually realized that keeping money and directing money matters just as much as earning it. And once he understood that, his finances finally started moving in the right direction. If this story reminded you of yourself, hit the like button and tell me in the comments, what's the very first thing your next paycheck is going toward? I genuinely love to read your answers. And if you enjoy simple money lessons, relatable stories, and practical strategies that actually work in real life, subscribe and join Steve on the journey. Because your next paycheck might not change your life, but what you do before it arrives absolutely can.